It's the sick show. It's the sick show.
It's the sick show.
All right, I think we're recording. We're doing
All
all
right.
the right things now. So, man, so many things I want to catch up on, and I don't even know where to begin, brother. You look great.
Thanks. You do too. You haven't changed a bit.
Well, I'd like to agree with you. I'm just not 100% sure I'm ready to do that yet, but I appreciate it.
You bet.
Oh man. So all I'm gonna do, I guess, I'm just gonna have you catch us up to what's been going on. You know, the Patrick McDirmit that I know is the guy who was a cheerleader. One of my buddy's younger brothers, obviously, but you were a cheerleader. You went to IU. You had a standout career there, and next thing I know, you're working for UCA, and then the whole world opened up for you. So that's where I'm at, bro. You tell me what parts I'm missing there, and how does Montpelier guy go from Montpelier kid? What you were like Huntington Street or something?
Jefferson.
Jefferson Street
Yeah.
to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of stuff in between there
Yeah.
that we're missing.
Yeah. So, the cheerleading thing at IU kind of spun out to, my first career after I graduated. I had worked a couple of summers teaching high school camps, some college camps at IU. I actually didn't make it the first time I tried out. I didn't get the job. So
As a camp guy, as a camp instructor, or
yeah.
oh wow,
So I mowed lawns. Right, I was on the groundskeeping crew at Taylor for a couple of summers there, in between. So that was a lot of fun. But taught some camps for UCA, graduated, and they had just started trying to kind of expand their reach a little bit and kind of diversify what they were doing in terms of oversight for camps. And so I was lucky enough to be the Indiana territory manager right after I graduated, stayed at IU, and was the assistant coach there for a couple of years.
So I want to pause for a second because I think it goes a little deeper than that. I do, and what's funny to me is when I talk to a lot of folks who aren't Blackford grads, they don't understand how strong co-ed cheer was at Blackford High School. Up through the '90s, and I think even into the 2000s a little bit. We were strong. It
Mhm.
it was it was an honor to be on that team.
Sure.
And through that, I think there was a lady from IU named Julie. Was that her
Yeah.
name? Blonde
Yeah.
hair lady. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was she the cheer coach eventually?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was.
Okay. And so I remember meeting like some of the guys I went to school with, and some of the gals that I was on the squad with that met with her. Prior to them going to IU, and it was pretty much, I don't know if it was a recruitment type thing, but it felt that way.
Sure.
And I'm sure to those guys and ladies it did too. But so was that your connection into IU from?
It was funny because when I was at Blackford, I played baseball, played football. I just never, it wasn't one of those things that I thought about doing it my senior year. I just, I wasn't confident, at the time that I could do it. I wasn't strong. Those guys that were doing it just had super social personalities, right? They were not,
ripped. They're all huge guys.
They were big dudes.
They were strong, man.
And I don't know if you remember me in high school, but I was not that.
No,
I was not that. So I didn't do it at all in high school, and so I go to IU. There wasn't really a need on the baseball team for a short, slow, average bat, average glove baseball player.
Yep.
They didn't need any offensive linemen that were 5'8", 160 from the football team.
Right. Yeah.
And, so needless to say, I was just living, the freshman dorm life, and I needed something to do. So Marcy Rubel
Yeah.
was she's my like second cousin through my mom's side.
Incredible athlete.
Yeah, great athlete. She was like training to try out her sophomore year, and so she was running in those circles in the off season with a lot of the people that were on the team. My freshman year at IU, I had no idea who they were, and she lived in trying to think what dorm. I lived in Wright, which is right beside the library, and she lived next door. And she was on the way to the Hyper building at the time to work out. She's like, just come along, right? So I'm like, I don't have anything to do. I'll go get a workout while you're doing, cheer stuff, and then we'll walk back together. So we did that quite a bit, and my workout turned out to be like other dudes that started chatting me up. They're like, hey, come on, you can do this too. Just hang out. We'll go get some beers afterwards. May or may not have been 21 years old at the time, but you know how that goes. Hung out with them for a little bit, and they were like, you've got to try some stuff. So just kind of fooled around in open gyms and things like that. Stuck with it, on and off, coming back for breaks and whatnot. It was, Marcy and Mike Hardwick at the time cheered at Ball State.
Yeah.
A couple other Ball State guys. Nate Smith was around.
Oh, yeah,
Just messing around in open gyms and whatnot. We'd come back home. That still wasn't any good, and had come back and was actually at Jason Jones's wedding.
Okay. Yeah.
In the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, and Jason had cheered at IU, and I'm there at the wedding just having a piece of wedding cake, and Julie, the coach at IU, she's like, you go to IU? And I was like, yeah, I go to IU. I'm related to Marcy, a couple of second cousins, whatever. And she's doing the cheer thing. She had already made the team, and there were several other cheerleaders there, whatnot. I didn't know any of them, but she was like, we go to camp in 4 days. We had a couple of guys not come back after they had made the team, and we're a couple of days short. How about you come down? We're leaving from here. We're going to Bloomington. We have our pre-college camp prep, and then we're going to University of Wisconsin Milwaukee next week, and you just go with us. And it was kind of like one of those things, just go with us, right? I'm like, okay. So I was like, I don't do what y'all do, and I'm not there. And then she was like, just come along, it'll be fine.
Oh my gosh.
So I tag along, and 4 days later, I'm in the middle of, University of Wisconsin Milwaukee, last day of camp, and there's a gymnasium full of college cheerleaders from Ohio State, Michigan, University of Wisconsin, like all of these schools that that I know, right? In the Midwest. And I'm doing a shoulder stand in camp championships. I'm just like, with flashbacks. I'm like, I have no idea how I ended up
How'd
here.
that happen?
Right, it happened so fast.
I'm just imagining you standing up there going, how'd I end up here? Oh my God.
Not in a million years.
Right.
And it kind of just is the story of my life. Like looking back, you would have said 7, 8, 10, 20 years ago, hey, when you're in your late 40s, you're going to, uproot your family and move cross country and live in Las Vegas, I would have said you're crazy too. So it's funny how we always end up in places we never predict.
Sure.
So that was kind of the beginning of cheer. And, once I got into it, I got really competitive about it. I wanted to be able to do things that other people could do. I was kind of a late bloomer, came into my own, started getting stronger, started getting a little bit bigger. and just kind of stuck with it. And it was something that I liked, and the people that I surrounded myself with were kind of in that same. We were all like kind of former athletes in high school, and we were just like dudes. And I mean, what better place to be than just a bunch of former athletes that get to, you know, stand on the court for a basketball game
At a Big Ten school.
You know, we're standing in, you know, the Kentucky Indiana basketball game in the middle of the, you know, the Hoosier Dome at the time, right? You know, CBS is there, Jim Nance, Billy Packer, you know, and you know, half the crowd is red and half the crowd is blue, and you know, Bobby Knight comes out and half the crowd goes wild. The other half is, you know, throwing things and stuff like that. And but you know, cheerleading was one of those things, and everybody kind of scoffs at it that doesn't really know.
Sure.
But I got to do so many cool things, and met so many cool, amazing people. I've been to Madison Square Garden, you know, for the preseason NIT against Duke. You know, to be at University of Michigan, you know, in the big house, you know, for their homecoming. That was just incredible. I got to go to every Big Ten, you know, football game, you know, throughout my career. My first flight I ever took in my entire life was to Iowa City when we played Iowa in football. I mean, just things like that, you know, normal people just, you know, you don't get
exactly the type of stuff where I'm like, this is why I put this podcast together, is to not just to highlight people from Blackford, but just ordinary people.
Yeah.
We grew up in the middle of small town flyover country, Indiana, and all of a sudden, because you're at the right wedding at the right time.
Yeah.
And hey.
And that's you know, that's kind of the story of, you know, kind of the story of my life. It's like the connections that I've made and the people that I've met have always led to the next thing that I never would have had the opportunity hadn't I just, you know, had I ignored it or not been there or gone or not listened or, you know, not engaged or something like that. And I've been fortunate to be around some amazing people that have given me some pretty incredible opportunities along the way.
So then comes UCA camps.
Yeah.
Didn't make it the first time around.
Yeah.
Mowing lawns at Taylor University.
Yeah.
And then finally breakthrough. How'd that opportunity finally come? Did you like try out again? And
yeah, I had gotten a lot better. I mean, that first summer camp had just happened,
yeah,
you know,
right,
6-8 months ago or whatever, for the first time.
It's a learning curve, man. You got to learn your body. You got to learn other people's bodies and control. And there's a lot.
Yeah. So it was, you know, it was a lot of that. And, you know, when you're talking to be an instructor, you have to know like the mechanics of things.
Right.
I didn't. I mean, that was so far beyond me at that point in time that I was just, you know, see girl, throw girl. You know, it was kind of like that. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. There was no nothing technical happening. You know, with what I was doing, but you know, I improved a lot from the first year to the second year. Again, it was like a really special group of guys that I was around at IU that we were just kind of cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
You know, we like to have fun. But we wanted to be good at what we were doing. And, you know, so it was a little bit of a competition between all of us to see who could do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And we would just roll in, you know, 3 or 4 days a week by ourselves. We would grab a couple of girls that wanted to go along, and, you know, we would show up in the field house at IU. We just would find a door that was open and, you know, make our way in there. It was just a different time.
Absolutely.
And, you know, roll in there and, you know, have a little open gym on our own, and then, you know, roll out back to somebody's house and stay up until 2 a.m. doing things we college kids do.
Sure. Absolutely. So UCA camps, you get on there and you start working those. How does that lead to the next piece? Just help me out.
Yeah. So as right as I was graduating, UCA had opened up an opportunity where they wanted to grow their camp enrollments. They wanted to grow their location amounts and really drive more participation in each state individually. So in a lot of states, some of the states like the Plain States, they combined and had one territory director that oversaw, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, 3 or 4 states together. Indiana was large enough at the time because Julie was the main varsity rep. She head coach at IU. She had been a varsity rep for years and kind of just dominated the state of Indiana, slinging polyester. She was kind of the state director at the same time. But UCA wanted to say, okay, let's separate the nonprofit side of the business, which was UCA camps, from the profit side, which is the business of selling cheer uniforms and things like that. And it was just, again, it was right place, right time. I was like, yeah, of course I'm gonna interview for this. It's a no-brainer. And so I interviewed for it, went through a couple of interviews, and got hired straight away, like right out of high school. I was actually finishing. I called it my victory lap at IU. I had some credits I had to finish up on my for a semester, and so I had finished up in December of '97 rather than May of '97.
Okay.
And so I had finished class, but I had actually got hired in like June. So that first summer I taught camps as kind of like the shadow of this is what you're going to do next year. So I headed a lot of camps that summer, and then that led into the new year, which I went to, first time as a state director or territory manager at that time that they called it, to college nationals, high school nationals. At that time, All-Star Nationals was just in its infancy at the time. But that was my kind of baptism into the UCA kind of oversight role.
Right.
And from that point, I took over and really tried to drive participation, locally in the state. So I did, I think my first year we had on campuses, college campuses, Ball State, Indiana, Evansville. I think we had a total of 12 on campus hosted camps for high school, junior high. And I think that first summer we did just over 100 private camps where we would send instructors to the high schools. The kids would, come in and leave every night as a private, and it was just your team that was there. So, and then I just grew that over a couple of years, up until 2002 was my last summer. I think the last summer we had 25 hosted camps on college campuses. And, our largest camp was Indiana 1 camp, which I think we had close to 900 kids at one camp. So it got pretty big, and it's still, the participation is still, climbing with all the opportunities that are out there. I had so much fun doing it, teaching kids and, instructing and being able to have a hand in them learning something that they didn't know before.
Right.
Or taking something that was good and making it great was just a lot of fun, especially with something like cheerleading, right? It's so random, what it is in general. And, everybody takes it, the kids themselves take it very seriously. And, but just helping them try to achieve their goals and, show progress over a 3 or 4 day period was a lot of fun. And I got to do it with some people that I still talk to, know, and love today.
That's awesome. So UCA coming to a wrap, and so what was your college degree?
Recreation sports management.
makes total sense, right? I mean, it's just a step in that direction
Right.
already.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and correct me if I'm wrong. So you moved from there to Disney?
Yeah. So I got married in July of 2002,
Where'd you meet your
and
wife?
at IU, she was
Okay.
actually a dancer on the dance team and had kind of grown up in dance her entire life. And the dance team was kind of, there was the cheer side and then there was the dance side, which two different, same program, but different coaching, obviously
No,
different.
yeah.
That's
But
those kind of things.
without that wedding. So you all owe all this to Jason Jones.
Yeah,
I'm writing that
100%.
down. That's
Yeah.
going to be the name of this podcast. I owe it all to Jason Jones.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's funny because Julie and I still talk probably every couple of weeks, and she's like, little did you know,
That's so
30
crazy.
30 years later you were just minding your own business having some wedding cake, and here we are 30 years later.
I
So
was not aware of that.
yeah.
Like I had no clue. That's
Yeah.
so awesome. Uh, so go on to so you get married and
Yeah. So my wife was a dancer her entire life. She had was in a studio, and she actually visited one of her friends at Disney that was a dancer at Magic Kingdom, one of the kids of the kingdom at the time, back in late 80s, early 90s. And she auditioned when she was there when she was 16.
Hmm.
And they wanted to hire her. Her parents were like, I don't think so. You need to go back and finish high school, and then you're going to go to college, and then you can come back and do it. And so her thing all along was, I'm going to go dance at Disney. And so 2002, I was like, well, for me, UCA had kind of, it's a young person's game,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
To be able to do it and to be a part of it, you've got to, it's a young person's game.
Yep.
My body wasn't what it was when I was, 22 anymore. So I was like, if we're going to go, let's get married. After we get married, we're gone. And it's a perfect time to kind of start my new career. We'll go, we'll be married, separate, away from everybody. Nobody to blame but ourselves. Nobody
Right.
to run to if we get upset with each other. Just rip the Band-Aid and let's go. So we moved to Orlando. I interviewed. I was like, I just got to find a job. We have about 2 months worth of money, right, for essentially rent and gas. I was like, I got to find a job because we got to eat. So I'm gonna find a job doing something, and I'll be looking for my next career.
Yeah.
Right? So I answered an ad in a newspaper to work at the fitness centers. I think it was the fitness centers in the Walt Disney World area, right? That was what it was.
Okay.
$7.25 an hour. I was okay. $7.25, not a lot, but swallow my pride.
Better than nothing.
Get a job. So I answered that ad. I go in. Yes. Hired. Perfect. I'm in. So my wife is going through the audition process, but it's slow, super slow. So she gets called back a couple of times, but this takes, probably over the course about a month and a half, when the bank account's going.
Oh yeah.
And meanwhile, we've got, a couple of lawn chairs in our living room, and a TV,
A box.
a TV VCR, right?
Nice.
With no cable.
Yeah.
To watch TV, we had to go to the clubhouse that had like a fitness center in it. So we would get on the treadmill and walk while we watched TV if we wanted to, right? So, I started working at the massage fitness centers at Walt Disney World, wiping down fitness equipment, booking massages for people, booking haircuts for people. $7.25 an hour. I'd go in at 5:30 in the morning, get off at 2 in the afternoon, right? So I could use from 2 o'clock on to find my next career. And my wife worked at that for, she worked at getting hired at Disney for, about a month and a half, finally got called back, got hired part-time. So she starts part-time, works for a few weeks, and then they start, even though she was part-time, they start giving her full-time hours.
Okay.
It's kind of, it's the worst kept secret. Disney will work people part-time up to the legal limit that they can, and then they transition them to full-time once they hit 26 weeks, right? Because you can only work, full-time hours for half the year before you have to be,
Right.
You have to change to actually being full-time. So she gets put on full-time, is loving life, right? I mean, I always tell her, when we were struggling money-wise, I'm like, there's not many people that get to do their passion and get paid for it. I'm like, so you need to scratch this itch until you don't want to scratch it anymore.
Absolutely.
And I'm here for it. Do it. Do it as long as you can. And so she was fortunate enough to, have a relatively long career at Disney and entertainment, dancing. She got to do some incredible things, Star Wars weekends.
Oh, man.
ESPN The Weekend was a big thing back then. High School Musical. She got to be a part of several, experiences that I'm sure, parents that took their kids to Disney from 2002 to 2008 or 9, she may or may not have been, somebody that they stood in line to see. So
Awesome.
she got to do some really, really incredible things. And like I said, that's what she was passionate about. She was passionate about dance. And from that kind of spun out in her leadership roles that she got to do things. I mean, she got her explosives license from the ATF because she got to handle like fireworks, like as she was oversight and management for, some of the fireworks shows that they had there. So, while she's doing, her ATF license, I'm over here, overseeing spas and salons, at Walt Disney World, which is like
a little flipped, but hey,
I know what kind of nail polish you probably should get.
that's right.
And she's over here like with her explosive license and stuff like that. So,
So we go from the 725, and boy, I think about those days, brother, man, where you're like, it's a paycheck, it's paying the bills. It is what it is, and you're looking for that next piece, and looking for a job back then was very different than what it is now. I mean, you had to go look, you had to find something. Where I feel like now, if you're looking for that next jump, you can fall on it.
Sure.
If you've got a skill set, you've got a resume, you can fall on the next opportunity with just a click of a button.
Yeah.
It did not look like it back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, no, you had to go door to door. I mean, you had to go press the flash and, drop your resumes off and, usually suit it up when you do it, all of those kind of things. As I was, wiping down fitness equipment and whatnot, it's just like that, again, timing, right? My company hadn't had any transition in leadership. The company that I was working with, they hadn't any transition in leadership in probably, it was about 6 years. Like the people that were there had been there for a bit. And they said, hey, we're hiring for a supervisor role. I think it paid $14 an hour or something. At that time, doubling hourly. This could ease the pain a little bit again while I'm looking for my next career.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to interview for it. So I go in. This was 2.5 months into, working as an attendant. So it was tough. And so I go in to interview with Director of Human Resources, and she's great. She's like, yeah, you know what? Hang on. And she goes and gets the president. I hadn't met I met the president in passing. British guy. Didn't really, he kind of did oversight, but he didn't really talk to attendance more than, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
What do you need? Nothing. He was more working with directors. And I spend a couple of about an hour just with him, just talking about business and what I like and what I do. And he asked me some questions, I answer them, and he's like, we haven't talked about it yet, or we haven't announced it yet, but the director is leaving and it's a role that we haven't opened. And he said, I think you're perfect for it. And he's like, so Kelly and I are going to offer you the director role to oversee the health clubs, spas, and salons throughout Walt Disney World. And I'm like, hell yeah, where do I sign? Before I even knew, like, okay, the pay is X,
Right.
whatever. I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, I hit the jackpot. I'm interviewing for $14 an hour as a supervisor, right? And to have that kind of opportunity kind of fall out of the sky that I wasn't expecting, my answer was 100% yes. Right now.
You had to probably look like that dog that you're like, shake, and the dog's just like, I don't know what I'm agreeing to right now.
Yeah.
I pray I get a treat out of this.
Yeah. So it was one of those, his and my relationship, it was just one of those, it just felt natural from the beginning, right? And it was the same with the director of HR. She was just like super positive, and I'm like, these are two people that I want to be around, right? These are people that I can feel good about working with and for, and these are people that I want to work with and for. And so I took that job, had the opportunity to kind of oversee those for a couple of years. Moving into, I think it was 2004, 2005, there was another spa that was opening. And so I got to oversee the opening of that, which was the spa at Saratoga Springs that we oversaw. That was fantastic, a great experience. I learned a lot during that. And then another director left from, I think it was 2006, 2007, left the Grand Floridian Spa. And so I got to move over there and be the director there. As we went through that, I was there for about 1.5 to 2 years. And then I had the opportunity to move to be the general manager and oversee kind of all of the properties. Wow. So I got to oversee the health clubs, salons, and then, all of the spas. I learned a lot more about hair care and nail polish and massage rules and, those kind of things that I ever would have thought I would have been interested in learning. But again, it was more about the people that have been fascinating and great experiences. Just being able to interact with the quality of people that I have has just been an extreme blessing. All along.
So what is your role now? So I'm assuming that all leads to where you're at now.
Yeah, so I am the vice president of operations for a different management company, but they're based out of Phoenix, Arizona. And I oversee 4 properties out here, 3 here in Vegas and 1 in just outside of Dallas. So out here, it's about, I would say, generally speaking, overseeing close to 300 people total over all 4 operations. And never would have, you could have told me 5 years ago, 6 years ago, because it'll be 5 years in April that I moved. Hey, you're going to uproot your family. Your son's going to be 6 months old. You're going to uproot your family and you're going to move, you're going to drive in a 27-foot U-Haul from Orlando, Florida to Las Vegas and live there, I would have been like, you're crazy. So, but the company I'm with now is, again, fantastic people. I was here for a year and COVID happened and the world shut down.
Yeah.
They and our partners wanted to keep me on. And so I was lucky enough to keep an income during that time.
Yeah.
And, you know, the craziest thing with Scott was being able to come into a casino, a huge casino that's always noise, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and there'll be nobody here. And the lights are still on, and there's no noise.
That's
right?
Gonna feel so
And
eerie.
It was like that. Was the Will Smith movie with the you know, where he's in New York alone? You know.
Yeah, I can see it in my head.
Yeah, but I mean, it was eerie. It was eerie and a really surreal experience. But again, I mean, I would have never in a million years thought I would have been out here anytime, let alone during COVID when life stopped for everyone.
Well, it's a testament to who you are and how well you must do your job for them to realize, hey, we don't want to lose this type of leadership. You know, without leadership within an organization, you're in big trouble, and you got to have great leadership in order to survive something like COVID and that time period. You know, I was in the school systems at the time during COVID, and I can just recall thinking how just how critical it was that we made the right decisions at the right times and said the right things at the right times in order, you know, to make sure that, you know, we had 800 plus kids that are out of school and they're off at home and they're doing this for class, and our teachers, you know, we got 80 staff members that we have to make sure, you know, have direction and everything else. And I was very blessed to work with the principal I was working with and the superintendent at the time, and those guys, they were fantastic. They were really good.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot during that, right?
Yeah.
I think everybody learned a lot about the people that they were around and a lot about ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and what for me was the importance of what I want, right? And what I want to do and what I want to, who I want to be, you know, because we've never had the opportunity to hit a pause button in our own lives. And I think it changed a lot of the workforce too, right? They realized that, hey, you know, these companies that we're working for, and I'm, you know, working, you know, 12, 14 hours a day and going home, taking work home with me and things like that. They had an opportunity to hit pause, and it felt good for them, and it allowed them to kind of reprioritize their own work-life balance. And I think all that stuff's good, you know. So
so I want to step back a little bit and just think about, you know, I think about my experiences growing up and how that prepared me for what it is now, and I really do think there was something special about growing up in Hartford City and Blackford County, in that small town atmosphere that has given me, I don't know if it's the patience, because it's not like we have some broad view of the world, you know, coming from the communities we've come from, but there's something that it's given us that's allowed us to be successful in the fields we've been successful in. And it's not just like, oh, well, because Patrick come from Montpelier, that's why he's so good at being a spa administrator. Or, you know, because Scott came from Hartford City, oh, that was why he was really good at, you know, sales or, you know, school education, etc. There's something about where we have come from that has given us that, I don't even know the right word to throw in there, but just a sense about us that allows us to capture opportunity. And that's what you've done. You've captured opportunity and said, I can do that.
You know, Scott, I think what it is, I think it's a little bit of being able to connect with people.
The relationship piece,
you know,
is always
I think
there.
there's real, you know, I think we're brought up in a real place, right? And what I've found in business world is not everybody's real all the time. I think teams that we connect with and teams that we help and oversee and try to lead, they can see through. Like everybody's had a boss or a leadership before that, that they're not giving you everything.
Yeah.
They're not giving you the whole truth. They're not being straight up with you. They're not straight shooters. They're just not transparent. And I think with how we grew up and who we grew up around and the place that we were, I don't know why it's different. But I think it's connection to people and just being real. Like,
I think that's it. And as you were talking, I started thinking about we didn't have a chance to be somebody else because we had someone watching us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I've said early on my podcast that Kim Collett used to drive by me. I'd be on my bicycle and Kim Collett would drive by and she'd yell out the car window, "I see you smoking, Scott Schick. I'm going to tell your mom I saw you smoking." I'm like, "I'm not smoking." I was like 10 years old, 12 years old, man. I wasn't smoking. But that was it. It was almost like, don't be something you're not, because we're going to call you out on it.
Yeah.
And there is someone watching. And as a leader, we always have someone watching us. There is someone there. And even when you weren't a leader, you were demonstrating leadership traits by doing the right thing when no one was watching.
Right.
And then the people who saw that in you decided, this Pat guy, he's doing the right thing. Even when we ain't watching, he's doing the right thing. I think there's more to him. And you're right. I love when you were talking about how it was the relationships that we formed that created that character within us. That character trait was just driven in us as we were developing, because we knew your parents knew everyone. My parents knew everyone. We were a small town, and boy, if you didn't stop at the stop sign. I just saw Don Sones the other day at my aunt's funeral, and Don Sones was the first guy to pull me over. Don Sones was the Hartford City Police. I don't know if he was captain or what, but he pulls me over on my bicycle. So the old fire station in Hartford City, across from the Methodist Church, there was an opening between it and the next little building was where you paid your water bill. And it was one way through there. You could only go one way, and it was out to State Road 26, to make your turn and go on with your day. Well, I come trucking along, and I went and rode the wrong way through it. He pulls me over. I can't be 12 years old. And didn't give me a ticket, but he pulled me over, Patrick. Well, I remember that. I remember that like it was yesterday. So I see him the other day, and I'm like, "Don, I was just talking about you, man. And I remember you pulling me over when I was a kid, but there was someone watching." And I knew he knew my parents.
Right.
I knew he knew my aunt and uncle. There was someone around us all the time that knew someone we knew. And I think maybe that's what gets missed when you're in a larger community, is that you can go across town and you're out of your neighborhood and they don't know your mom. They don't know your dad. They don't know your aunt. They don't know your uncle or your cousins or whatever. At least they don't know them personally enough to pick up the phone and go, "Hey, I saw your boy today. You wouldn't have liked what he was doing." You know what he was doing? He was mooning people as he was cruising last night.
Right.
Nobody was going to do that if you're not that well connected. And that's how our communities were. They were so connected. It's that relationship piece that you just hit on. That's it. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I think that, and I think when you're in it, you always take it for granted, right?
Sure.
And sometimes you don't like it, right? And everybody thinks that living somewhere else or being somewhere else or whatever is going to be better or greater. All of that. I would give anything to be able to raise my son in a place like that,
Sure.
right? Because here it's, I mean, literally a week ago, we've lived in the same place for 2.5 years, and about 3 weeks ago was the first time we had met more than one neighbor. And we live in like it's a small neighborhood, gated, probably only about 40 homes,
Okay.
right? 40
Yeah.
homes on it. And first time we had met anyone but the one neighbor next door to us. That and it's just, there's not there's it's really tough to find a sense of community outside. And this was the same way in Orlando when I lived there. It was they're very similar towns. Now there were areas you could go, but the people that we knew were people we worked with. They weren't people that were our neighbors that we were tight with, and but it's just it's a lot different. Again, I wish you know my son would have an opportunity to have to grow up in a place like that, right? Tight knit. I'm sure he may not, like, once nobody calls mom to tell on him or anything, but
Right.
at the same time, I think there's a sense of peace there for having. I think it takes a village anyway,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
not having that village just raises the stakes another level.
Talking about living in a neighborhood, this is the first time we've lived in a neighborhood in our marriage. And so when I say that, like a subdivision, when we first got married, we lived on Chestnut Street down across from the William Reed, and we bought that off of my wife Jennifer's aunt and uncle.
Mhm.
And when there was no garage there, so when you park out front. This will all connect here in a second where I'm going, but you park out front, you get out of your car, and you walk up to your house. And on that trip from your car to the house, you typically see one of your neighbors,
Mhm.
and you say, "Hey, what's going on?" Or they're like, "Hey, somebody came by today and you know knocked on your door. I don't know who they were, but just keep an eye out." It was
Right.
different in that way in that first place we moved. Then when we left and we went to the country, obviously we wouldn't have any neighbors for 15 years.
Sure.
And the neighbors across the road, we got to know them a little bit because in the winter I'd go plow their lane, or we'd take them cookies when they moved in, or they'd bring us something for Christmas, or we'd get each other's mail occasionally.
Right.
Then we moved from here down to Madison, and once again we were kind of out on our own. We didn't have neighbors.
Mhm.
But then when we moved back to Hartford City, we moved into Creekside, and it was the first time I'd moved into a home in a subdivision, and within my subdivision, all the homes have garages. And all the homes have garages that you pull off the street, you open your garage door, you park your car, shut your door, and you go inside.
Yeah.
And you rarely see your
Yeah.
neighbor
Mhm.
and I think it's because of that.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm safe. I'm in my domain, and but I miss my neighbor coming to me, and at 8 o'clock at night, hey, you got a cup of sugar? I'm out of sugar. And
Right.
I miss that. I miss
Yeah.
them. We're sitting out on the front porch just hanging out and having a drink or something, and the neighbor comes out and they're like, hey, you mind if I come over and sit with you for a minute? And we
Right.
just tell stories and jokes, and Scott Lex and Mark Boofman were our neighbors, and those guys would come over and just chit chat with us. We'd come
Yeah.
home late from a ball game or something, and there they'd be. We'd put the
Yeah.
girls to bed and we'd hang out with them.
Sure.
I miss that. And I, I thought the other day, it's so funny you brought that up about living in a gated community and know your neighbors. I really don't know my neighbors.
Yeah.
The one neighbor I talk with the most, well, besides my brother-in-law Jim Knuckles just lives down the street, and then David Parker moved in across the street from me.
Okay.
But our other neighbor, Ken and Julie, I know who they are. We've talked to them a few times. I got to talk to Ken for a little bit last year during the summer.
Mhm.
Man, what an interesting story that guy has. I
Yeah.
can't wait to get him up here in my podcast room, man. He
Yeah.
worked for G or Chrysler for years. He was Lee Iacocca's personal photographer.
Oh wow.
Man, I want to know that guy's story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
growing up in Detroit in the 60s and 70s, I want to know his story.
Sure.
But we don't have that connection.
Yeah.
And think about that as a kid when you knew all your neighbors.
Yeah. Not just neighbors. You knew everybody on the street,
Right.
right? Like
We
down,
knew
like
them.
for a block or two.
What I thought I was pulling in the other day, and it's so bizarre that you bring this up because I was thinking, man, I need to start like a Facebook page for Creekside so we can all get to know each other and communicate.
Yeah.
Because we don't know each other, and there's a lot of interesting people that live out here, and I want to get to know them. Now, I'm a very social person, so I'm
Right.
sure there's others going, I don't want anything to do with knowing no person.
Right. It's the
But
last thing I need.
right, but I want to know my neighbors, and
Yeah.
maybe that's growing up in the city. The city. That's air quotes, everyone. But it is labeled Hartford City, so I guess. But we did know everyone, and we had
Right.
those relationships. And I knew that if we were going on vacation, we would tell the McMichaels, "Hey, Junior and Helen, we're going on vacation. Can you just check our mail for us?" And
Right.
we have that here. We have relations. Jennifer's relations come and check things for us, but because Jim lives down the street, I mean, it's very simple. Checks on the cat in the mail, and we do the same for them.
Right.
But I worry about my kids. My kids never experienced that.
Yeah.
They've never experienced that. Now my kids are fantastic, and I love them dearly, and I worry about them, of course, but
Sure.
they they grew up more isolated than what I did.
Yeah.
We get on our
Yeah.
bicycles. You didn't come home.
Right.
Don't come home.
Part of that is, generational, right?
Sure.
And what you have access to. Ours was, a bike, and
Oh,
you
man.
know, bike and summertime was you're gone until dusk,
That's right.
right? And when the street lights kick on,
That's
you gotta start,
the alarm.
you gotta start rolling home, right?
That was the
And,
alarm.
and the emergency sound is when your mom or dad's out on the front porch yelling.
That's
You
oh
know?
man. So uh, at my aunt's funeral, my aunt Carol was a fantastic lady, and we'd have coffee every Saturday as a family. So on the Toby side, so Jason Jones and his whole clan, and
Yeah.
Angie and Mark Toby and all the Tobys, and we would get together pretty much every Saturday. They still do, and this has been going on since the '60s.
Mhm.
And when we were at the funeral the other day, and Jennifer and I walk up to the casket, and Jocelyn's with us, and I just start crying because all I could hear was my aunt saying, "Well, Scott's chick." That's what she'd say every time she saw me, and it was like, "Ah, man, I'll never hear that again. That was so special to me." And you think about how someone greets you when they see you. I
Sure.
can still hear Kim call it. I
Yeah.
see you smoking. I can still hear those things in my head. I can still hear my mom yelling at me when it was time to come home. And when you said
Sure.
that, and it was, I'm going to try and do my best. All right, I'm going to have to move the mic, but it was,
Yeah.
it was a, real- it was a, that was the big part of it.
Oh yeah.
And I could hear her from my house to the pool, and that had to be 3/4 of a mile, almost a mile away. She could just belt it out, and I can imagine her swinging open the back door.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it was my mom. And then you'd hear it again, like, "Hey, man, I
Yeah.
gotta go."
Yeah. Where we lived in Montpelier, it was, a couple blocks from the middle school. So the basketball
Oh,
courts,
yeah.
playground was all, right there. And we could hear, my mom from there. And like, it was funny because Scotty Cagle lived like
Oh,
2
yeah.
blocks the other
Yep.
way. Kevin Brown lived, a couple blocks just down
Yep.
the way. So we all knew whose mom was yelling, and that was everybody else's alarm
That's
to
right.
go to get home, right?
That's right. If it was
But,
one, it was all of them.
yeah,
It was coming.
So it was good memories, and a time that, unfortunately with, all of the social media, video
Yeah.
games now, I'm talking to a couple friends. They all have kids that are, some of them graduated from college already now, you know, uh, same age that I am, but I've got a 5-year-old. They've got
Right.
college grads, but I've got one good friend that their son turned 16, and I was like, he's getting his license, getting a what are you getting him? A car? They were like, he's got no interest in
Isn't that
getting
weird?
his license.
So
And I'm
weird.
just like, to the day when we could go to get our license, we were there as early
Oh,
in the
man.
morning as we could.
Yes.
Right? And it's just, different times, man.
Isn't that
Different
weird?
times.
We couldn't wait to go cruising.
Right.
You had to go cruising.
Yeah. You remember that first day of getting your license, right?
Oh,
You were
man.
driving to your boy's house,
Oh,
and you got your license, you're in your car by yourself. You're just like, this is it. It does not get better than this. It
yeah.
cannot get better.
And there was that older guy, and there's that older guy that's driving, and he's got the lean, and you drive by, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
a couple finger wave or something,
Yeah.
a nod.
Yeah.
That's my brother. My brother still does that. He's like, just one finger up, like he's still cruising in 19. And here's the funny thing: my brother Bill, and I don't think Joe, either one of them, listen to my podcast, so I can talk smack about them all day long, and they'll never know it.
Never know.
My oldest brother Bill tried to listen to my podcast a while back, and he's like, "Yeah, I just can't do it. Just can't do it."
Can't do it.
It's like probably because I haven't shut up since the day I was born. That's
That's
probably
it.
part of
That's it.
But I always thought, man, I gotta have a cool. I never had a cool wave like some of those guys did, and I always thought I needed to develop that. Mine
Yeah.
always, I'm sure I thought it was cool, but I'm sure it looked like this.
Yeah.
Just thank God I don't video this because everybody would have seen that. But I never had that cool wave.
Yeah.
So I had to do something dumb. It's usually find the bird or something when I see
Right.
somebody. That wasn't cool. That was just dumb. The
Right.
cops would see me do it, and get pulled over for loud exhaust or something.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, my kids weren't crazy about getting their car. I would say, well, maybe they did after they had it for a moment. Then they were like car crazy.
Yeah.
I think my youngest, she was ready to get a car because she had seen her sister and that freedom she had. Whereas I don't know that Addison, I don't know if she was car crazy when she turned 16, but I don't know. She's never really been one to be over the top emotionally anyway when it comes to excitement. So who knows? Maybe she was, and I
Maybe
was just
she's
blind
jazzed,
to it.
right?
Right. Doing cartwheels up in her room.
Right.
But man, what a journey you've had, and it's definitely noteworthy to say, man, we're proud of you, and you represent us all really well. And I'm so Blackford oriented. It's like you're my brother.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. And I was talking to a guy who's not from Blackford County. It's Steve Hurd, and Steve is an avid listener, and he was talking about, why do people dog Blackford County, man? He said, you've had some incredible guests. I said, I don't get it, because I've never felt that way. I've always felt like we've had some incredible people come from here, and people that really appreciated life, really appreciated their station in life, and that weren't over the top about I'm this or I'm that. And I really appreciate that about you, is you've attained something really special, and you've earned every bit of it, and you're very humble, and that's who you are. It's not like that is just who you are, and you've always been, and I appreciate that, and that's why we love you. But thanks for coming on here. I appreciate it. Have I missed anything?
No, man. Blackford will always be home. Always be a Bruin, baby.
Once a Bruin, always a Bruin. That's for sure.
I drove my son past. We went back home, spent some time with my brother at his place, and got to do some Indy 500 stuff this last Memorial Day, and we drove by the high school, and I was like, "Yo, Carter, it's where Dad went to school. It's like, you're gonna be a Bruin too, baby. You might not go to high school here, but you're gonna have some Bruin swag." So he's like 4 at the time. He's like, "You went to school there?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, a long time ago. So
they've kept it up so nice, man. And I get into a lot of different schools, and I see a lot of different schools in the role I'm in now. And Blackford High School and all of Blackford County schools, they do such a nice job. I was just talking to a lady at the admin office the other day about it, and I said, man, I get into a lot of them, and you guys continue to keep up the looks and the function of our buildings really, really well. Sad to see Montpelier shut down. But that was a bigger bigger picture item than a facility. That facility was
Mhm.
still in great shape. And I hope the community utilizes that well and finds purpose within it.
Yeah,
But boy, all the schools are in wonderful condition, and the
good.
addition of those gyms that you could see from the
Yeah,
highway
yeah,
were a tremendous change. It
good.
changed the whole feel of even coming into the building. You're like, the
It
first
looks like
the
I'm like
first
trying to
time.
orient myself, like when I walk in,
First,
where this is going to be.
yeah, so it's really cool, but they continue to do a good job and a lot to be proud of there. That's for sure. Um, Dude, thanks for coming on, man. It's been an
No, thanks
absolute
for
pleasure. I
having me. I
love catching
appreciate
up
it.
with you. And I remember a few years ago, I reached out to you, and you got me some connections when we had Luke Brown come through the schools,
Oh yeah,
and you
yeah,
were able to give me some direction. I really appreciated that. And I don't know if I ever
yeah.
properly thanked you, and I'm terrible about that, by the way.
All good.
It's one of the worst things I've really started working on probably the past 4 years. Principal down at Madison called me out on not thanking him enough. So then it became over the top for Ronnie,
Right.
and I would get ridiculous about, oh my God, Ronnie, it's just unreal how much I appreciate everything you just did for me when you gave me that yes
Right.
via email to my question. I can't thank you enough. So it became really dumb.
Right.
But I did realize I need to do a better job of giving gratification and showing that gratuity in a way. And so anytime I talk to anybody, I'm always like, hey, by the way, I probably forgot to say goodbye or thank you or
Right.
respond to an email or a text or something you sent me.
Sure.
But no, I really appreciate whenever I've reached out to you and you've been able to give me some help. And
Yeah.
meeting Sharon a few years ago was really bizarre,
Oh, I
and
bet. I
uh,
bet.
so I'll share that with you real quick. So,
Yeah.
um, you want to tell how you know Sharon Wilkerson?
Yeah.
Because
So
you know that
Sharon,
story better than me.
no, Sharon and I, he was pretty close friends with an Indiana basketball manager at the time that I was pretty close with. Everybody needed roommates. We're like, yeah, why don't who you got? I was like, I'm here. Do you have anybody else? He goes, yeah, I think Sharon needs a place to live. I was like, all right, let's go. So we went out and had a couple of beers, and the next thing you know, we roomed together.
Yeah.
We had a house right across from the Memorial Stadium, like
Oh
walking
yeah.
distance to
Oh
Memorial Stadium.
wow, I didn't know it was that close.
Oh yeah, super
So,
close.
so Sharon was a basketball coach in Madison
Yeah,
the year I got there, and one of my friends down there, Ron, was one of the assistant coaches with him, and took me to one of their practices,
yeah,
and I started talking to Sharon and telling him who I am, what was going on, and next thing I know, he brings his whole team in. I never shared this with you, but he brings the whole team together, and he says, "Hey guys, Mr. Schick here. He wanted to share something with you, and just give us a little pep talk for practice." And I'm like a deer in headlights, and I'm like, game on, man. And I just flip the switch and I start giving some pump up speech about,
yeah,
if you can do it, anybody can do it, and
yeah.
I believe in you, and you got to believe in yourself, type thing. And I turned around and just walked away and never said another word to him. And so I talked to my buddy Ron. He's like, dude, you just turned the switch on, man. I said, buddy, I'm a gamer. I'm a
Yeah,
gamer. You put
yeah,
me on the 3-point line, I'm gonna hit a three. If, I'm a game winner. I'm a four hitter, dude. I'm not gonna lay down a bunt. I don't know how to do that.
right.
But I just remember listening to his voice. Did he always have that crazy, like deep,
Oh yeah,
like haunting voice? I'm
yeah,
just imagining an 18, 20-year-old
yeah,
with that voice walking
yeah.
around.
I mean, you talk about a dude that you know just a few different things happen in his
Sure.
life, and uh, he's probably an NBA guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he was that good.
Wow.
Uh,
So weird how just an incident
yeah,
can change that trajectory.
yep,
We hit that off with what all, just one circumstantial meeting
yeah,
creates a lifetime of domino effect,
for sure.
and just being willing to grab a hold of that, dude. Great job, and keep up the good works, and
Yeah,
good luck with the kid and the wife, and hope
appreciate
everybody
it.
the best health, brother. It's
Appreciate
been great talking to you.
It's great to talk to you.
Until next time, let me know when you get in town again.
Yeah.
Don't
Do the
forget,
same when you come out here.
we will be. Jennifer keeps talking about coming to Vegas. I've been there once. Yeah, I've been there once. I'd like to go again. I'd like to experience it differently than the last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
When you don't have any money to spend, it's not near as fun.
Yeah.
And we have a little bit of disposable income now, so it'd be a lot more fun. But ask your brother about his chilioke party. Just
Okay.
say, hey, I was talking to Schick, and he said to ask you about the chilioke party. I don't want to share it with you. I'll let him tell the story.
Okay.
Brother, good to see you,
All right.
man. Take care. Thanks for
Later.
taking the time. See ya.
Thanks, Scott. Bye.